A number of years ago, Elon came up with a great slogan for a t-shirt. Buh, Elon, good. Or, more properly pronounced, belong. A wonderful thing to use that little college name right there between the B and the G. But along with this is a welcome. You are where you belong. Students, you're here at Elon, and this is where you belong. We hope you feel welcome. They've done the shirt over again. I saw it. It's quite nice. Belonging has always been a part of humanity. We've always wanted to feel a part of something. A clan, a club, an organization. We come together, and millions of people come together every Saturday night or Sunday because we want to feel we belong to something bigger than ourselves, to this wonderful church. Belonging is important to us. And I'm sure that's what got the Jewish man in the gospel to say to Jesus, who had been talking about this great kingdom of heaven somewhere up there, are there few who's going to be saved? Are there going to be who and where? Who's going to be there and who's not? Is it me? Am I going to be there? And Jesus doesn't answer the question because he's not a statistician. He turns it over and says, try to enter through the narrow gate. Whenever I hear that phrase, I'm reminded of my own dear mother. My mother died this summer, June 15th, suddenly, and we laid her out in the casket, and around her hands was a cloth. And anyone came to the funeral home to offer their condolences to us, they asked about the cloth. And I said, the cloth is a maniturgium. At my ordination 28 years ago, my hands were anointed with the sacred chrism that's used at baptism and confirmation, and wiped off on this cloth, and we present it to our mothers so that at their death it's tied around their hands, because as the mother of a priest, you get a free ticket to heaven. And my dad, just the other day, we were talking about this, and he said, well, what about me? And I said, you lived with my saintly mother for 60 years. I have no doubt you're going straight up to me. Try to enter through the narrow gate. Not so easy for us, is it? It requires something that St. Paul talks about in this second reading. And that thing is discipline. We don't like to hear that word, discipline, sometimes because it means we have to work hard, long, tedious hours. We have to put work into what we're doing. That's discipline. You all know that it's discipline that makes the difference between an A+ and a B+, right? You know it's discipline that makes the difference between an athlete and an Olympian, between a ballerina and a prima ballerina, between someone who earns a spot at Elon University and someone who doesn't. Discipline, hard work. You are here where you belong, Elon students. Go back to my seminary days, first year of seminary. After lunch, every day, we had what was called the Chapter of Faults. Our master at the time, now called director, we'd be in chapel, kneeling down, and he would proceed to tell us individually all of our public sins. Gerry, you had 2 helpings at dinner. Matthew, you missed the spot when you were sweeping in the kitchen. Daniel, you were sleeping during meditation. And then, after the Chapter of Faults, we had to take our ropes off, we're Franciscans, and go into our rooms and actually hit ourselves as a sign of our contrition, that we were remorseful for our sins. One of our friars who was in Assisi, at the time they used to go into the big basilica, and one of their masters used to say, I want to hear flesh! Not so nice. But certainly an outward sign of an inward reality, hopefully, that we were remorseful for our sins. Discipline. It's tough. In order to get through the narrow gate of heaven, each one of us has to be disciplined, and we don't need a rope. It's a lot easier than that. What each of us has to do is try to love God above all things. Or more importantly, try to love like God. Try to love like God. It means praying for patience, praying for perseverance, praying for humility, and praying that God will give you those opportunities each and every day to exercise those virtues. It means when one of your suite mates gets up on the wrong side of the bed or with a bad hair day, be kind to them. You know, if you see a freshman lost, can't find their way, show them how to find their way. If someone is out of meal swipes, take them to Zach's for a hot dog, for God's sake. If a freshman is walking down the brick walk and trips the first time, go help them up. It's not rocket science. We don't have to be as austere as Anthony of Egypt or Francis of Assisi. We have to live our lives aware that God is in our midst. God asks us to love him above all else, and his reflections, which are one another, and to go out of our way for one another. I don't know about you, but I would hate to go to the kingdom and be at the gate and say, "Hey, Jesus, you remember me, right? I got baptized. I used to go to First Communion. I went to my First Communion. I got communion. I got confirmed, remember? And then, I went to church on Christmas and Easter. Remember, we saw each other so often?" I would want to hear, "Get out of my sight. I don't know who you are." I want him to say, "Come, open the doors, as narrow as it might be, good and faithful servant. Come, inherit the kingdom prepared for you in advance." The news is that the door is narrow. The great news is the door is always open. Amen. Before we conclude, speaking of t-shirts. A number of years ago, our student leadership came up with this wonderful green t-shirt, and it says, 10 top reasons to be a Catholic. First, we have the Pope and the Pope-mobile. Second, that was number 10, sorry. 9, there's something about Mary. 8, you can sing badly and no one will care. 7, 70 times 7, all about forgiveness. 6, can you say transubstantiation? 5, eternity. We got it going on and on and on. 4, good exercise. Stand, sit, kneel, repeat. Third, 1 + 1 = 1. And the number 2, it's universal. And the number 1 reason to be a Catholic, the Eucharist is celebrated every day. By popular demand, students want this reprinted. And in order to do that, we need orders. They're $10 a piece, I believe. The order forms are in the back. They're also online. T is in the back with a little swipe thing that you can swipe your credit card if you want. It's so easy. Anyway, a great t-shirt. God bless you.